They laughed when I said I had a job interview. I laughed too, just not for the same reason. Have you ever had people roll their eyes at your dreams? Like you're some kind of joke just for trying? If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, told to be realistic, stick around. This story? It's for you. And if you're the quiet one they count out first, you're about to learn just how loud silence can be. Hit that subscribe button. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the calmest voice in the room. It started simple. I was cutting into a dry piece of chicken when Mom asked, "So, James? Still working that remote job thing?" I wiped my mouth, nodded. "Actually, I've got an interview tomorrow. Luminate Biotech." For a second, it was quiet. Then Dave laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. "You? At Luminate? Come on, bro. That place doesn't even hire interns without Ivy League degrees." Josephine didn't laugh, but the way she sighed said everything. Like she was tired of me even bringing stuff like this up. "James," she said, pushing the salad bowl aside. "Let's not embarrass ourselves, all right?" Then Dad, Albert, leaned back, arms crossed, face unreadable. "If you're gonna shoot for something believable," he said. "Stick to what you know." They all went back to eating like I hadn't said a word. But me? I just kept chewing. Calm. Focused. Because while they were laughing at me for saying I had an interview, what they didn't know is that I already owned the company. Yeah. Luminate Biotech? That's mine. And that interview I mentioned? That was just the opening scene in a show they weren't ready for. You ever had a moment where you realize not only do they not believe in you, they don't even know who you really are? That was the moment for me. The moment I knew it was time to stop hiding. Because I didn't just want to prove a point. I wanted them to see it, to feel it. And they would. Soon. Never laugh at someone's ambition, especially when you're sitting at their table. Drop a comment if you've ever been laughed at for aiming higher. What would you do if the same people who doubted you had no clue you were the one signing their paychecks? Like, share, and hit that bell because the story? We're just getting started. They always called me the quiet one. The kid who stayed in his room too much. Who didn't talk at dinner. Who didn't party, didn't date, didn't shine like Dave did. Dave was the loud one. The golden child. Every report card pinned to the fridge. Every little league trophy placed dead center on the mantle. Even his mistakes, they had charm. Mine, they had consequences. I still remember the day I got my full scholarship to Caltech. Mom said, "That's nice, James, but don't forget to apply to community college. Just in case." No party. No cake. Just a half-hearted pat on the back and a list of backup plans. Meanwhile, Dave flunked 2 classes his sophomore year and still got a brand new car. That was the rhythm of our house. Dave's dreams were celebrated. Mine were corrected, explained, softened. So I stopped sharing them. While Dave went off to a private university and blew through Dad's money-chasing half-baked business degrees, I kept my head down. Majored in bioinformatics. Took extra shifts tutoring just to keep my phone on. And every night, while the dorms buzzed with parties and life and noise, I built something. Platform. A quiet little health data startup no one noticed. I called it Helix Map. At first, it was just me in a borrowed hoodie coding on a beat-up laptop. But a year in, we were predicting patient outcomes faster than some hospitals could schedule appointments. 3 years later, we sold to a private medical group for $42 million. Did I call home? Did I say, "Hey, I made it"? No. I just paid off my loans, bought a 1-bedroom condo, and ate ramen like nothing had changed. Because they didn't ask. They never really asked. I stayed in the shadows. On purpose. Because when people don't think you're a threat, they don't guard themselves. They tell the truth. They underestimate you. And you learn everything. So I kept building. Launched a second firm, this time in genomic testing. No press. No panels. Just solid science. Sold that one for $117 million. And still, they thought I was just some IT guy. Still fixing laptops? Dave would chuckle every holiday. I'd just smile. Because while they saw wires and keyboards, I saw patterns, networks, algorithms. Power. That's when I set my sights on Luminate Biotech. Not because I wanted a job there. Because I wanted to own it. It took 3 years. I used a series of shell companies and blind trusts. Moved my equity through private brokers. Tiny transactions. One by one. No press. No noise. No trail. By the end of it, I owned 61% of Luminate Biotech, majority shareholder, voting rights, the whole thing. But I didn't walk in the front door with a crown. I didn't fire anyone, didn't change my nameplate. I took a non-executive role under a pseudonym, kept my face out of meetings, spoke through memos and proxy votes. Because this wasn't about power plays. It was about watching, learning, preparing, letting the people who'd laughed keep laughing, letting the ones who overlooked me keep looking past me. They thought I was still fixing laptops. I was busy fixing an industry, quietly, patiently. And every smirk from Dave, every comment from Mom, every moment they dismissed me just made the final move that much sweeter. So when I said I had an interview at Luminate, that wasn't a lie. It was a test. And they failed it. Miserably. But that was just the beginning. Because what came next would flip everything they thought they knew upside down. And I made sure they had front row seats. Keep watching. Because the shadows don't hide weakness. They hide preparation. And mine was almost complete. Dave always wanted to be seen. He chased the kind of success that came with applause, corner offices, business cards, Rolexes that clicked too loud. So when he landed a junior director role at Luminate Biotech, he acted like he'd cracked the code of the universe. Director of Regional Strategy, he said at dinner one night, loud enough for the waiter to hear. Mom clapped. Dad raised his glass. Now that's what success looks like, Josephine said, giving him that smile, the one I never earned. I just nodded. Didn't mention that I already had control of the seat 2 floors above his. Didn't say a word about how Marty Roth, the public CEO, reported to a name he didn't recognize. I just kept chewing. Again, the real game began the moment I submitted my application. My resume, stripped down, graduated from some no-name college, worked tech support, contract jobs. I applied for a temp data analyst position bottom of the food chain. Just enough credentials to get in the door. Just bland enough to be forgettable. And I walked in with a different energy. No tailored suits. No expensive watch. Just khakis, button-up, old backpack. Something Dave wouldn't be caught dead in. When Melanie Atkins, head of HR, first met me, she tilted her head like I was a stray dog someone brought inside. She gave me the bless your heart smile. Asked if I needed help with the onboarding forms. Told me she'd personally walk me through everything so I didn't get overwhelmed. I thanked her, played along. Because Melanie didn't know that I was already copied on every internal report that hit her desk. Didn't know that her role existed because I approved its budget last year. They assigned me to a desk in the annex, where the AC didn't work and the coffee machine sounded like it was dying. And every morning, I walked past Dave's glass office. Every morning, he nodded like I was the IT guy, didn't even recognize me, until one afternoon in the break room. He walked in, caught a glimpse of me at the vending machine, did a double take. James? He blinked. Wait, you're working here now? I smiled. Interview went well, I guess. He laughed. Not politely, not nervously, loud and sharp, like he was still at Mom's dinner table. Damn. No offense, man. But I didn't think they'd actually hire you. He grabbed his protein bar and walked out. By the next day, the whispers started. I saw a Slack message flash on someone's screen as I walked by. Is this guy related to Fowler? What's the story here? Then came the email. Dave didn't even try to hide it. Subject line. Concerns, new analyst in data team sent to Melanie Atkins. CC'd half the middle management tree. Not sure who signed off on this Morrison guy. His credentials are paper thin, and honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. We've got real talent applying for roles, and somehow this guy gets through? He's a joke. Why is he even in the pipeline? He clicked send. Smiled to himself. Probably thought he was protecting the company. Probably thought he was defending the brand. I read it from my actual office 6 floors up. Then again in the admin portal I still had access to. Then once more, just to feel it. That kind of arrogance doesn't just walk into a trap. It builds the trap, stands in it, and begs you to pull the lever. But I didn't react. Not yet. Because people like Dave, they can't help themselves. They double down. By the end of that week, he'd told 2 department heads I was probably a diversity hire. He accidentally forwarded a salary thread about me to Christy Matthews, the executive admin. And at Friday's stand-up meeting, he made a comment so loud it echoed across the floor. Someone should explain what a KPI is to James. We wouldn't want him getting lost down here. Everyone chuckled. Some looked away. Some just kept typing. I smiled. Took notes. Because every joke, every insult, every smirk was being recorded. He thought he was testing me. He didn't know I was testing him. And he was failing. Loudly. Spectacularly. Melanie still treated me like I was fragile. Dave treated me like I was invisible. The rest? They followed suit. But I wasn't just taking mental notes. I was building a file. Every message. Every comment. Every whisper. Because they thought I was new. But I'd been here longer than all of them. Watching. Listening. Owning. And when the moment came, they wouldn't just find out who I was. They'd remember every word they said along the way. Because quiet doesn't mean weak. It means patient. And I'd waited long enough. Firecracker ACT 4, the setup 18:01, 28:00. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't storm into any offices. Didn't demand respect. I just opened a folder labeled setup. It already had 17 documents inside. By the end of the month, it had 62. Every time Dave sent another smart comment by email, every time someone forwarded me a chat where he called me low-tier filler, every fake smile in the hallway that turned into a whisper once I passed, it all went in the folder. What they didn't know was this: my assistant, Heidi Holcomb, wasn't just my personal scheduler. She was planted in HR 6 months before I ever walked through the front door. Quiet. Friendly. Great listener. Everyone in the HR department loved her, which made it real easy for her to pull internal performance reviews, compliance records, anonymous feedback, and even voice memos from exit interviews. She started flagging patterns. And what we found? Dave wasn't just mocking me. He'd been bullying junior analysts for months, taking credit for other people's work, blocking promotions behind closed doors, bragging about his authority in Slack threads late at night. One of the interns, Jordan, filed a complaint that went nowhere. Another, Emily, was quietly transferred out of his department after calling out hostile behavior. He called them soft. He called it filtering out weak links. It wasn't leadership. It was damage. So I started the audit. Not the kind that gets announced in a newsletter. The kind that happens behind locked doors and encrypted drives. Every financial projection Dave signed off on was rerun. Every deal his team logged was traced back to original sources. And sure enough, misreported earnings, falsified pipeline data, inflated ROI projections. All of it tailored to make his department look like it was outperforming. It wasn't. In fact, it was leaking money quietly, bleeding confidence from partners, costing real people their bonuses. I had what I needed, but I wasn't finished. See, people like Dave don't stop until they're seen, until they think the lights are on them. So I gave him the spotlight. 2 weeks before the quarterly executive board meeting, I let him catch wind of something. Marty Roth, the CEO, made a vague comment during a leadership dinner. Something about fresh restructuring at the top. Dave took the bait. He cornered Melanie in the hallway the next morning. Told her he was ready for a bigger seat at the table. She smiled politely. Nodded. Didn't say a word. Because by then she'd seen the folder too. She knew who I was. See, I had finally told her. Not because I wanted applause, but because I needed someone with authority to back the internal findings. She cried in her office when I showed her the ownership documents. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I told her it wasn't personal. Just the process. Just the cost of watching instead of assuming. From that day on, she worked for me. Heidi doubled down in the background, pulling Dave's private conversations from archived group threads. Christy, the executive admin, started scheduling around me. Philip Faulkner from the board and I had our first face-to-face meeting over lunch. I told him everything. He didn't flinch. Let's make it clean, he said. We've seen worse. I nodded. We've never seen it this satisfying, I replied. Then I sent the calendar invite. Q3 executive review, attendance mandatory, date, Friday. Time, 9 a.m. Location, 15th floor executive boardroom. No subject line. No names. Just the invite. Dave was the first to accept. The rest of the week, he strutted around the office like he'd already been promoted. Talked louder. Smiled wider. Even told 2 people, big changes coming. You'll see. He wasn't wrong. Just not in the way he thought. I spent Thursday evening in my real office. pulled out a final folder labeled Reveal. Inside, audio recordings, financial trails, documented complaints, and a signed statement from Emily, the intern he crushed. Everything in place, tied in a ribbon of silence. Friday morning, I wore a plain black shirt. No tie. No flash. I walked into the building at 8:40 a.m. Same elevator as always. Pressed the same button. Kept my head down. Let the walls close around me. When those doors opened on the 15th floor, I stepped out, not as a temp, not as the quiet one, but as the majority owner of the very company that had doubted me. It was time. The table was set. The players were in place. And the clock had just hit 8:59. The next breath I took would change everything. For them. For me. For every quiet one watching from the corner. Waiting for the right moment to remind the world who really holds the power. The boardroom smelled like fresh polish and paper ambition. 15 leather chairs. One long table. Bottled water lined up like soldiers. And a tension in the air so thick you could slice it with a glance. I walked in quietly at 8:59 a.m., wearing a plain charcoal suit. No tie, no pin, no title badge. Just the look of someone who already knew how this was going to end. Dave was already there, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. He saw me and smirked. Tilted his head the same way he did when we were kids, and he caught me sneaking in late from the library. Still following me around, he said under his breath. I smiled back. Just thought you'd want company on your big day. He winked like I was the punchline. Across from him sat Josephine and Albert, stiff in their seats, dressed in their Sunday best. Josephine had her phone out, probably already writing the Facebook post, proud of our Dave. Big news coming soon. The last to arrive was Marty Roth, the public CEO. He greeted everyone, shuffled his notes, adjusted his cufflinks like it was any other meeting. Then he began. Good morning, everyone. Let's begin with a few highlights from Q3. We've seen considerable growth in our oncology trials division, and actually, said Philip Faulkner, calmly closing his laptop, Mr. Morrison has something he'd like to share first. Dave looked confused. Melanie shifted in her seat. The room turned. I stood. Opened my black folder. One by one, I passed them out, each director, each department head, each guest. Inside, everything. Ownership filings. Audit reports. Screenshots. Transcripts. A statement from Emily. And the final, formal resolution prepared and signed. Dave laughed nervously. Wait, what is this? He asked, flipping through pages. He scanned the documents, then paused, eyes locked on the ownership registry. My name, plain and bold. James A. Morrison, majority shareholder, 61% equity. What the hell is this? He said again, louder. This has to be some kind of joke. I looked at Melanie. She didn't blink. Just pressed a button on the conference tablet. Audio began to play through the room's speakers. Dave's voice, crisp and confident, filled the air. Between us, that new analyst, James, total dead weight, probably hired as some diversity stunt or pity pick. I don't even think he knows what a pipeline is. He's laughable. Another clip followed. If we massage the Q2 numbers just a bit, I can make it look like my department's outpacing projections. Trust me, no one upstairs reads the raw data anyway. Silence. The kind that makes your heart thud in your chest. Dave's face drained of color. His mouth opened but no words came out. He turned to Josephine. She stared at the table like she'd lost her place in the world. Albert looked like he'd swallowed a brick. Let me be clear, I said, voice steady. For months, Mr. Fowler has manipulated data, bullied junior staff, and actively worked to undermine operations at Luminate Biotech. He believed he was untouchable. He believed no one would see him. He was wrong. I turned to Marty Roth, who nodded in quiet agreement. As of this moment, I continued, Dave Fowler is terminated from his role at Luminate Biotech. Effective immediately. Dave pushed back from the table, voice cracking. You can't do this. You're not even. I mean, who the hell are you? I stepped forward. My name is James Morrison. And I'm not just your colleague. I'm your boss. I've owned the company you've been bragging about for the last year. The same company you tried to poison from the inside out. I paused, looked at the directors, at Melanie, then back at my parents. And to be clear, any attempt to re-enter this building, contact employees, or interfere with ongoing operations will result in immediate legal action. Josephine gasped. You can't do this to your own brother, she whispered. Albert just shook his head slowly, not in disbelief, just defeat. I'm not doing anything, I replied calmly. Dave did this to himself. Dave stood abruptly. His hands trembled as he pointed across the table. This isn't right. You're a nobody. You've always been a nobody. I nodded. And yet here we are. Security entered without a word. Two men in suits, professional but firm. They stood on either side of Dave's chair. This is a mistake, Dave said as they gently ushered him toward the door. He looked back at me, eyes filled with something between hatred and regret. You won't get away with this. I held his gaze. I already have. He left. Josephine followed, her heels clicking louder than her voice. Albert stayed back just long enough to look me in the eyes. You always were the quiet one, he said. Then he walked out too. The door closed. Silence. No one moved. I sat back down, folded my hands. Now, Marty, I said, you were saying something about oncology trials? He blinked, then smiled. Right? Yes. Let's continue. And just like that, the bloodbath was over. But the real shift? It was just beginning. The boardroom cleared, but I didn't move. I sat there for a while, long after the last chair squeaked, long after the last handshake, long after security locked the door behind my family. And the silence? It wasn't satisfying. Not yet. You'd think it would be Dave's betrayal that hurt the most. The lies, the mockery, the sabotage. But no. It was the look in my mother's eyes, that flicker of shame, not because of what Dave had done, but because of who I'd become without needing her. It was the silence from my father all these years, the quiet disappointment that hovered every time I came home without a shiny title. The way he introduced Dave as my son who works in corporate strategy but always said my name with a footnote. James does something with computers, I think. They didn't believe I was worth betting on. Not once. Not when I was accepted into Caltech. Not when I graduated top of my class. Not when I built Helix Map and sold it for millions. I gave them updates, softly, carefully, waiting for something other than the nods and nonchalant, "That's good, son." But they never came. So I stopped trying. And started building. Alone. I still remember those nights. My dorm light the only one still glowing at 3 a.m. Fork in one hand, typing with the other. Instant noodles again. Same hoodie 3 days in a row. Socks damp from the leaky laundry room pipe I never had time to fix. I worked the night shift at the campus IT desk. Took on 3 tutoring jobs. Did freelance code reviews between lectures. No spring breaks. No parties. Just vision. Just grit. Just silence. No one clapped. No one watched. But I kept going. Because I knew something they didn't. Real power? It doesn't beg to be seen. It waits. And when it's ready, it shows up. A soft knock pulled me back. Christy Matthews stepped into the room, tablet in hand. "There's a media request," she said. "They want a quote. The story's moving fast." She hesitated. "They want to know why you stayed anonymous all this time." I stood, stretched, and looked out at the skyline. The city that never knew my name, but would soon know my legacy. "Tell them this," I said quietly. "Real power never announces itself. It just waits, then moves." She smiled and nodded. No questions. She understood now. That weekend, the messages started. Dave emailed first. "James, I don't even know where to start. I was wrong. I let pride ruin everything. I'm sorry. I'd take it all back if I could." He sent 3 more after that. One had a voice note. I didn't listen. Albert called the next day. Twice. Left voicemails I never opened. He said he was proud. That he didn't realize. That we should talk sometime. Josephine showed up at the lobby unannounced, holding a pie in a bakery box and wearing her best Sunday smile. "He always loved apple pie," she told the front desk. "I just thought maybe I could say hello." I had Christy send her back down with a thank you note. Short, polite, distant. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't hungry for approval either. That hunger had died somewhere between the 3rd shift at the call center and the 10th bowl of ramen in that quiet, cold dorm room. I'd fed myself since then, and I wasn't starving anymore. By Tuesday, my story was on the front page of 3 business blogs. The headline said, The man who owned the company while they laughed at him. Silent billionaire reveals himself in epic corporate takeover. I didn't do interviews. Didn't need to. I let the silence do the talking. Let the results speak louder than the years they ignored me. Because this wasn't revenge. It was clarity. And clarity is loud in its own quiet way. People assume power wears a name tag. That it speaks first. Raises its hand. Asks for permission. But real power? It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need applause. It just needs one moment to show you who's really been in charge all along. The office was still. No meetings. No buzz. Just the low hum of the city beneath me. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the top floor at Luminate Tower, one hand in my pocket, the other wrapped around a warm cup of black coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just the way I've always taken it, simple, focused, quiet. Below me, the city moved, unaware, unbothered, just like it had been when I started this journey. Funny how that works. You spend years trying to be seen. Then one day, you stop trying, and you start building. They laughed when I said I had an interview. They didn't know I was interviewing them, testing them, measuring who they became when they thought I had nothing to offer. Spoiler alert. Most of them failed. Spectacularly. Let them laugh. Let them scoff. Let them say you're not good enough. Then go build the thing they said you'd never touch. And when you're done, don't gloat. Just smile and own the building. I turned from the window, glanced at the framed articles on the wall. Not because I needed validation, but because I wanted proof that silence can win. That staying in your lane, keeping your head down, working in the dark, it all adds up. One day, they'll look around and realize the one they ignored, the one they mocked, the one they left out of the group chat, built the table they're now begging to sit at. My phone buzzed another press request. I turned it face down. I walked past the desk, past the engraved glass plaque, James A. Morrison, Executive Chair. And I paused at the elevator, watching my reflection in the brushed steel. Not because I liked what I saw, but because I remembered what I used to see. The broke college kid. The overlooked brother. The underestimated son. All still in there, but no longer running the show. Have you ever been underestimated? Brushed aside by the very people who were supposed to believe in you? Let them. Let them keep talking. Let them keep doubting. You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to prove yourself right. Share your story below. Let's build a space where quiet strength is celebrated. Where we don't clap the loudest, we just build the biggest. Like, share, subscribe. Not just for the story you just heard, but for the one you're writing right now. Because if no one else sees you, I do. And your time? It's coming. And when it does, don't knock on the door they closed in your face. Buy the building, change the locks, and smile as they walk past with their heads down. That's real power. And it looks good on you.